Hello, beautiful people, and welcome. I wanted to come here live to share with you something that has been really present for me in the last few years lately. As I observe this in the spiritual community, there are a lot of spiritual teachings that teach us to become enlightened. We do that by transcending the body. That the way to enlightenment is through the transcendence of our body, our ego, our physicality, our humanness. But that's not what spirituality necessarily is about. Actually, not at all. Spirituality is something that each one of us awakens in our own way, in our own reality, and it can mean different things for different people. And for so many years, I've been doing, I was doing so many meditations and practices about transcending the body. And I was learning from all these different teachers and teachings that to be enlightened and spiritual, it meant that I needed to transcend all the things that made me me. So I needed to transcend my personality. I needed to transcend my ego. I needed to transcend my roots and where I came from. I needed to transcend my desires. I needed to transcend my body. I needed to transcend my physicality. And it took me so many years to descend back into my body. And to understand that there are different paths to spirituality. Actually, every path is a spiritual path, and there is no comparison, and it's unique for each one of us. I no longer feel that to become enlightened or spiritual, we are supposed to transcend the body. That didn't bring me happiness, fulfillment, enlightenment, or any of that. It brought me isolation and disassociation. And so for the last few years, as I've been descending back into my body, I've noticed a life-changing difference in myself, in my energy, and in the way I conduct myself and in my life in the world. And we are always learning from outside sources about spirituality. But spirituality can only be found within our own unique and individual experience. It's not something we learn from a book, from a guru or a teacher that we put on a pedestal thinking that they know more than us. Of course, there are people who know more about certain things than us, and are more evolved in certain aspects of life than us. But spirituality is not something that we can learn from an outside source. It's an inward and individual experience that only we can define and experience for ourselves. And through all this transcendence and disassociation and all of that, there are so many traps that go along with it. What we call spiritual bypassing, isolation, disassociation. And I don't think any of those things bring us closer to God or closer to enlightenment or any of that. I feel they just separate us from the world around us, and that can be very dangerous. I no longer think we are supposed to be meditating up a mountain to reach enlightenment. And with so many spiritual teachings like this, I feel that can be so dangerous, and we need to just descend back into our bodies and honor our humanness. What is spiritual about disassociating from being human, if that's who we are? What is spiritual about transcending everything and transcending the body, transcending this reality and just going into the ethers and becoming one with Source? What's spiritual about that? if this is where we are. I feel my path has changed from wanting to reach something to really grounding back into my body and into this reality and living my path here on earth, because that's where I am, and I feel that that's where we are needed. So many spiritual people are high up in the ethers and unable to ground. And because they are unable to ground, they are unable to form meaningful connections and relationships. They are unable to sustain themselves financially, to take care of their humanness and honor the whole spectrum of emotions and experiences that encompasses our human experience. And there are so many beautiful spiritual people who are unable to live in the 3D because it's too dense and they can't cope with it. But this is where we live and this is where we are. So we might as well just ground ourselves back into our bodies so we are able to live here, because this is where we are. And I know it's not always easy, but it's just what it is. So I really don't resonate with any of that anymore. And it took me so many years to come back to myself, to come back to my body, to come back to my roots, to come back to my humanness. Because what can be more divine than being human? And how can being a human, trying to not be a human anymore, be our definition of spirituality and enlightenment? It's funny because it's like there's this confusion and these spiritual teachings that are like, to become enlightened, you transcend the body and you transcend your humanness. But that just sounds kind of weird if you think about it. What can be more spiritual than honoring our humanness and who we are? And maybe trying to get over that and transcend that is what's actually not so spiritual. I'm just saying. So lately on my journey, what I've been doing, because a few years ago I was offering a lot of quantum activations and energy work and light language and all of that. And in the last few years, what I've been doing is actually helping highly spiritual, sensitive, empathetic, energetically sensitive people ground back into their bodies so that they are able to live in the 3D world, because that's where we are and that's where we are supposed to be. And so I've been debunking all of these pseudo-spiritual teachings and just bringing people back into their humanness and back into their bodies. And like, I was the last person I ever thought would be teaching this, because I was the most connected, sensitive, high, disassociated person ever. But it was time for me to not ascend into 5D or whatever, but to descend back into my body. And I know so many highly spiritual, highly sensitive people need this, to come back from the ethers and ground back to the earth. And to understand and honor that the most spiritual thing there is to be human. And yes, sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's hard. It's very paradoxical. And it's weird and crazy, and there's all of these different emotions and things we feel. And the world is operating in a certain way, which is not ideal, but it is what it is. And so for us to actually help and make a difference in the world, we need to be in the world. We need to be grounded. We need to be here. Because if we are not, how can we help? And I know this can be so confusing and triggering for a lot of people. But maybe just transcending the body and meditating and being peace and love, maybe that's not really helping anyone. And maybe what's actually helping is to be here and be human and hold that light, not up in the ethers, but here on earth. And to have that compassion and that vision and that awareness that we have in the ethers, but to hold that energy, to hold that light right here on earth. What can be more divine than honoring our humanness? And what can be less divine than denying it? I feel there are so many traps and loopholes and rabbit holes inside the spiritual teachings that take us on roads that lead nowhere. And no matter how far we go, we return back to ourselves, into our body, into our humanness, only to find ourselves as perfect and as imperfect as we have always been, because that's what it means to be human. And there's nothing more divine than that, than honoring who we are naturally, without trying to ascend from it, to transcend it, to deem it not good enough, and so wanting to become better, more enlightened, whatever. So, in all my offerings lately, whether it's my membership, which is my lowest ticket offer, we really have like somatic practices and a lot of information and a lot of ways to ground back into our bodies and to honor this reality and to live our lives right here. And whether you're working with me one-on-one, I do not so spiritual spirituality and somatic spirituality, which is descending our energy back into the body, not ascending and transcending, but grounding back into our bodies through somatic practices, to practices that honor our bodies and honor our humanness and honor the full spectrum of emotions that we feel as humans. And I'm also now launching a new program just for women to help us connect with our bodies. We can say that there is a masculine path of enlightenment, which is to transcend the body. And we can say that there is a feminine path to enlightenment, which is to descend into the body. I'm now hosting a 6-month program container just for women to help us descend back into our bodies and to live our spirituality through our bodies, through our humanness. And so for these 6 months, all that we do is honor all the emotions, all the sensations, all the things that are emotional, physical, and human. We do somatic practices, really deep somatic practices and exercises. We do movement. We do voice work. We dance together. We connect with our wombs, with our hearts, with our bodies, with our yearnings. We connect with our humanness. And we cry, and we laugh, and we gather in circle. And we create a safe space for ourselves and for each other. And instead of trying to reach enlightenment outside of the body, we welcome our souls back home into our bodies. So if you have been wanting to work with me, what you can do is you can join my membership which is only 33 euros a month. And you have access to all my courses and all my practices and all my exercises and 4 live calls a month. The price is going to go up, but for now it's still 33 euros. It's super, super cheap and accessible for anyone who needs some help and support in a community of people that are going through the same journey together. Each month we have a different theme and archetype that we go into. So the most accessible way to work with me now is through the activation membership. If you want to go deeper, and if you are a woman, I invite you to join the Lotus Temple, which is our new 6-month program where we dive into the body, and instead of ascending and transcending the body, we descend and we root and we ground back into the body. And so we focus on all things that are related to connecting with the body, body movement, body exercises, voice, emotions, humanness, all of that. It's really, really deep and really, really nurturing. And I'm really honored to go on this journey with you. And if you actually want to work with me one-on-one, this is my highest ticket offer. I do not so spiritual coaching, which is like just me debunking all these pseudo spiritual teachings that actually just disassociate from the body and like not help you at all in your human life. And so you can bring whatever spiritual teachings or whatever like misinformation you have been feeling around spirituality, and we like debunk it. And I also give you some assistance for your life in a practical and grounded way. You can also work with me through Somatic Spirituality, which is a one-on-one program that you have with me, where I help you ground your spirituality back into your body. To ground all the magic that you have, all your abilities, all your sensitivity, your spirituality, and we root and ground back into the body. It's a somatic experience of your unique spirituality, which doesn't have to look like anyone else's. Spirituality is not a recipe that we need to follow that a guy wrote how many years ago. Spirituality is a unique experience that each one has with life itself. It's not supposed to be something we learn from a book, we learn from a guru or a teacher. It's something we experience within ourselves. So if you have been wanting to work with me, the easiest, most accessible way is the membership. Then it's our 6-month container. If you're a woman, to dive into our bodies and our humanness, or if you want private one-on-one coaching with me, you have not so spiritual coaching or somatic spirituality, which really focuses on somatic practices, emotional practices, and body work practices to really help you connect with your body. I have so much to share about this, and I will continue to share. For now, this is all I want to share today and where I want to leave you at. Thank you so much, and I will see you soon.